Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Faisla2011 and I'm your host Shizad Haq. My co-host today is Ali Naqvi. In today's show, we have three candidates from Greater Toronto area. All three of them are from NDP. Our first guest today is from York Southwestern, Paul Ferreira. He first got elected in 2007 in a by-election, but he lost in the general election the same year by a very narrow margin of only 500 votes. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Shazad, thank you very much for having me.
Our second guest today is Rayed Ayad. He is running in Mississauga Streetsville riding. He has bachelor's degree in public policy and management from York University. Welcome to the show, Rayed.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for having me.
And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Perfect.
Perfect, okay. Our third guest is Khalid Ahmed from Don Valley West. He is one of the youngest candidates in this election. He's only 19 years old. Welcome to the show, Khalid.
Thank you, Uncle. Assalamu alaikum.
So let me start with you, Paul. Tell our viewers, why should they vote for NDP as opposed to Liberals or Conservatives?
Well, we are the only party that is bringing forward practical, positive solutions to the problems that Ontarians and their families face on a daily basis. We were first out of the gate in our opposition to the unfair nature of the harmonized sales tax, specifically that it is a tax on essentials that people rely to live on each and every day. And we proposed, we were the first ones to say that that tax should come off essentials like hydro, heating, and gas for the car. And as I campaign throughout this past summer, I found a really positive response to that idea to make life more affordable and to put people and their priorities first for a change.
But Paul, HST could be the worst thing ever happened to Ontarians. And here we have the principled NDP not promising to abolish it. We have the BC NDP fighting, struggling, and succeeding through a referendum, getting it abolished. ONDP, the Ontario NDP, never asked, never pledged to get it abolished. So where is the principle?
But no, Ali, here's what we've said. First of all, it should be pointed out that Mr. McGuinty signed a backroom 5-year deal with Mr. Harper. He didn't tell anybody about that, locks us in, but we've said, if the federal government does not allow us to take it off the essentials that I specified earlier, hydro, home heating, gas for the car, then we'll look at all the options. And the options may be to scrap it altogether. But Mr. McGuinty has locked us in for 5 years, and we have to, at this stage in the game, play within those terms. But I can tell you, things may change, and our leader has been very, very definitive on that if we need to scrap it entirely, we will.
So NDP government or not NDP government, 5 years from now, we should expect NDP standing up and demanding it to be scrapped off.
Well, now you're talking about 2 elections from now. I mean, let's get through the election on October the 6th. Let's have Ontarians make their determination on who forms their government, and let's see how things unfold. But I can tell you this, if the federal government gets in the way and says to Andrea Horwath and the NDP that you can't do that with the HST, you cannot take it off the essentials that people rely on each and every day, then it will be a very, very different ball game, and we'll have to make appropriate decisions.
Well, one of the things that comes to my mind is the last time NDP was in power, the very first thing they did was break their election promise, which was on public auto insurance. That was their main promise, and that was the first thing they did. What's different? What's going to be different this time around?
Shazad, I should tell you, in 1990, I wasn't even old enough to vote, okay? And my fellow candidates here, were you even born in 1990? I guess you might have been a year or two old. Yeah, we're looking towards the future, right? We're not looking back in time. We're looking at policy positions that will help Ontario become a great province, again, a greater province into the future, and stuff that's happened in the past. I mean, that's for the historians to debate. That's not for me to debate.
But it is the same party, though, isn't it? I mean, the party hasn't changed. I mean, different people.
I think we are as committed as we ever were to standing up for ordinary people in this province. And I'm not saying that our party has always been right. We've made mistakes. But frankly, the other parties have a much longer track record of making more and greater mistakes. And I think as I go across my riding and across the GTA, I think people are prepared to give the NDP a chance again. And I tell you, that is something that is different from what I've heard in the past. But we've turned the page. And I encourage you to as well.
Now, we saw in May of 2011 an upsurge for the NDP. A lot in Quebec, but some in Mississaugas, some in Toronto. Almost every federal NDP candidate, we saw double the number of votes, 7,000, 10,000, and whatnot. Do you gentlemen think that upsurge in federal politics for the NDP will translate in a surge for NDP provincially in Ontario?
I'd hope so, but at the end of the day, we cannot depend on that. We have to go out there. We have to do what we were told to do from the beginning, what we have signed up for. We cannot say that, you know what, the federal candidate has received 5,000 more votes than they did in the prior election. That means I'm going to do it. No, the reality of it is that it's a whole new ballgame. It's a new election. We're going against a different government. I'm not going to say that it's not going to help us. We now have more supporters out in the ridings. I know I can speak for my riding. We saw almost a 5,000 vote increase. And that has me excited, of course, to see that more people are supporting the NDP. But now it's my job to go out and get an extra 10,000 more. And it's on me and my team and our party to support one another and getting that votes and increasing that, not only depending on what they're doing in Ottawa, but using the energy that they have instilled in us and the newfound passion for our party that they've given us in Ottawa and moving forward here in Queen's Park.
And in the federal election we saw in Quebec, there were a lot of young candidates who got elected. We have Khalid over here, who's only 19 years old.
Yes.
So tell me, Khalid, why did you decide to get into politics and why did you choose NDP?
Well, I decided to run in the provincial election before the federal election was declared. I was actually talking with my father, and being a child, I always wanted to help people. So I was deciding what I will take in university, and it was, should I become a doctor? Should I become a police officer? Because if I become a doctor, then I'm just taking care of the health system. If I become a police officer, then I only take care of crime. So my father told me that, you know what? Just go into politics. He said it as a joke. We had a good laugh, but I think I took it seriously. I took a step, and then federal election was declared. So it was a great opportunity for me to get involved, and Jack Layden stood up from Danforth. So I went and helped out in his campaign, and it was a great experience. And I talked to him, and he told me that, yes, you could do it. Give it a shot. So I did, and I'm sitting here now.
So Khalid, I assume you're a student.
Yes, I am.
Liberals very recently came out with their platform, and there was a radical idea about significant reduction in the tuition fee. And we have heard Henry on our show and NDP for a long period of time raising and agitating the high and ongoing increase in the tuition fee. So now, as a student and as a young candidate, how do you feel about this Liberal promise?
Well, they have broken promises before, but it's also that where will the money come from, right? It's just the money's going to recycle. They said that they will cut it off the fee, and then it was coming out of our pockets because I'm worried that there will be a new tax now. So now I have to pay extra money for everything I do, even if I buy a coffee, and that's what I'm scared of. And
so under the NDP government, they'll be paying for your coffee as well?
no, not for the coffee, but they'll be reducing the tax, right?
But I want to jump in on something that you said, Ali. You mentioned that it's a radical plan to lower the cost of tuition. That wasn't the announcement yesterday. There was no talk about making tuition any cheaper. There was no commitment to putting a cap on tuition. As far as we know, tuition will continue to skyrocket. What he said is that he will make up to $1,600 available for a certain segment of students towards the cost of their tuition. But for all we know, if the trend continues, tuition is going to go up another 25% in the next 4 years. And so Mr. McGuinty, he likes to play both sides of the equation. One of the reasons that we have a problem with high tuition, in fact it's the highest in Canada of all the provinces, is because Mr. McGuinty's government has allowed it to become so over the past 8 years. The decisions that he has made have created this problem, and now Mr. McGuinty thinks he can come riding in on his white horse and save the day. I'm sorry. There's a credibility gap, and as my friend Khalid said, he's broken promise after promise after promise. Why should we believe him this time?
I thought you were going to turn the page on broken promises.
Who's in government today, Shazad? It's the Liberals who are in government. But that's their track record. It's 8 years. They're in government now. They've got a record to develop.
But the gentleman, fact remains, in terms of education, the largest number of students going for post-secondary education in Canada and across North America, across Europe. That's Ontario. That's the numbers, that's the OECD figures we're talking about. The lowest wait times in healthcare, Ontario. So there are credits to be given to McGuinty Liberals, and I believe, we are all mature people here in politics, and we can make things better. They're not claiming to be perfect, but we can make things better. Now, in regards to healthcare, what is the NDP suggesting to do?
Well, one thing I know that we want to work on is to we want to cut the wait times even further. Whether or not whatever the statistics show on the ground, we do have issues when people go to the emergency room. One way is the long-term health care, the home care, to kind of help people when people are ill, to help them get better and receive services when they do not have to go to the hospital.
6 million additional hours of home care has been promised by the Liberals. What is the NDP suggesting?
I thought it was 3 million.
Okay, still.
3 million. Here's the reality in Ontario right now. The wait lists for home care now are 10,000 seniors long, okay, under the McGuinty government's watch. More and more seniors are being forced to stay in hospital beds because they have nowhere else to go. In fact, more than 5,000 of them across the province. What we have is a growing crisis. We know that baby boomers are getting older. The demographic of this province is changing. What we're saying is let's put in more hours into home care. Our promise is an extra 1 million hours, okay, which I admit is a drop in the bucket, but it's a start. But let's also end competitive bidding, because competitive bidding, you have different agencies bidding against one another, and that ultimately leads to fewer hours of hands-on patient care. And money's being squandered. And on healthcare, you want to talk about money being squandered? I have to bring up e-health. $1.1 billion spent by this government, their well-connected friends, made out like bandits, and we have very little to show for it. It's not that we're not spending enough money on healthcare right now. We're spending $45 to $46 billion. That's about 40% of the provincial treasury. But the money is not being spent very smartly. We talked about how do we keep people healthy? Well, good nutrition, active living, smoking cessation. These are all things that cost very little money. But we do not have a provincial strategy, a viable provincial strategy on any of that stuff. You could be saving billions by spending 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars a year. This government on healthcare has dropped the ball. They're allowing healthcare executives to make, in some cases, 7-figure salaries. Right? We proposed a cap. They voted it down.
We saw the same thing under the Conservative government.
Liberal Tories, same old story.
On that note, we're going to take a break, and we've got a number of issues to discuss. We will be right back.